guys, it's Jen and I'm back with another collection disconnection video. This is a series where I show you how to use one collection. In my case, I'm using the Crate Paper Wonder collection, which I have in my Iris case here. And I'm going to show you how to use one collection in multiple ways. So today I'm showing you how I'm going to use the Wonder collection, which is very soft and pretty, but it's very childlike. It's a childhood collection, almost babyish, and I'm going to scrapbook some vacation photos. So these are some photos from my Oregon trip, and these are photos of the seaside promenade, and I just wanted to talk about how quaint and how beautiful it was. This particular photo is a little bit different than these two, but I think I can work them together. And I also just wanted to point out, I have another photo. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar, printed in a different size, because this photo also applies to a layout where I'm going to talk about the aquarium. So if you want to learn more about how to good ways to tell your vacation stories, be sure to check out my Photo Triage Vacation Photos class, which is in my store at CraftyJenScout.com. And with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and get started on using these products with these photos. So I'm going to start by looking through my papers to kind of decide what might go with this. And I'm just going to pick out some of the blues and the browns to kind of go with this. And then because I'm talking about the promenade and there were lots of really cute beach houses all along the promenade, I'm going to use that little house paper and I'm going to cut it up like I've seen other people doing. And I just love it, so I'm copying. But I'll cut a couple of the rows of houses off to use as a border on the bottom of my layout. So I've pulled that paper out for sure. And now I'm looking through the stickers to kind of see what might work. And the awesome thing about these stickers, so it's a childhood collection, but there's also like a stack of suitcases, there's a globe, there's words like discover and stuff like that, and so an adventure, which does definitely have to do with childhood, but it also has to do with exploring the world. And so I am going to pull some of those things out. I'm looking through the die cuts to see what, if anything, might work, and just throwing it into this little dish that I have. And I'm just pulling anything that might work. And obviously I won't use all of it. In fact, I'll only use a couple things, but I'm just getting it all ready for me to go if I want to use it. And I'm looking at this globe, and on it says something I don't want. I can't remember what it says. A little note for you. But I don't want it to say that because it's not a note. And so I'm looking for something to cover up the words on that globe. So I'm going to use my Big Shot, and I have a circle die from Spellbinders. And I'm just going to cut a circle out of this piece of a tag I have left over, and I'll layer that over the top of it. And it's perfect. It gives me a little border, which I kind of like, and it works great. So I will use that to cover it up. So before I even get started on the layout, I know I'm going to use that globe, and I'm just going to go ahead and work on this before I even get the structure of my layout ready. So I'm cutting the word discover, or is it adventure? I can't remember. Out of that little piece of paper, and I think that's from the cut apart sheet from the 6x6 paper pad. So I kind of played with the photos to get a look that I like, and I'm using 3 3x4 photos. When I have multiple photos, I usually do one larger and then a couple smaller or something like that, just because if I have a focal photo, then I'll treat it that way. But this time it's just all about the promenade, and they're all equally worth talking about, and so I printed them all the same size. And I'm going to use the corrugated alphabet to spell out the word promenade, and it's quite a long word. So I'm just going to have it go across, and it kind of cuts the layout in half, and that's going to kind of help dictate how I lay everything out. So sometimes when your photos or your titling can kind of help you along with your page design. So here is where I'm going to cut out those houses. I'll put them along the bottom. And even though they don't really look like beach houses, that's kind of what they're representing on this layout. And I think that's totally fine. So you got to be a little bit flexible with the theme of the products. And if it kind of works then, and you like it, then just go for it. And I do, so it's fine with me. So I just placed the photos so that there was a horizontal one next to the vertical one, and then there's another vertical one resting on top. And I like that configuration. And now I'm playing with the globe, thinking that it might be nice to do the globe up there at the top with a subtitle. So I'm pulling out my watercolors to kind of play around to see if I've been really enjoying doing brush script, and I used it on a layout. I don't think it was my last layout, but a couple layouts ago. And so I'm going to use it for the subtitle on this one, or I don't know if it's called a subtitle if it's not after the title, but it's a pre-title. And I'm going to just paint the word seaside, and I really like the way that that looks, and so I will go ahead and do it. I just did on some scratch paper to test it out. So I'll do it on the actual layout once I get things laid out a bit more. So now I'm just looking through the die cuts to see what else I might want to add. I thought I was going to add that camera, but it's way too big in comparison to the globe. It just dwarfs it, and it's just not quite the right size. So now I'm looking for something to put to the right hand side of the photo, and I also thought I might need something at the top, but I'll come back to that in a minute. But there is a space to the right of the photo that I'm going to fill here in just a second. I thought I might use that word adventure. I didn't, but I liked the way that the D had the loop on the top of it, so I tried that on mine, and it looks okay. And I am using this sticker. I punched a circle out of the center of it, but I thought it would be a nice little addition to the side of my photo here. I took this sticky off the back with my EK Success powder tool. I thought I might add these little arrows at the bottom, but since those houses are so busy, I'm going to try to keep the rest of the layout fairly simple. It doesn't end up as simple as I thought it would, and that's okay. I like the way it turned out, but I thought it would be simpler than it ended up. So to fill in that little space on the side of the photo, I just cut a strip from a 6x6 piece of patterned paper and that light blue chevron. And I'm playing with the puffy word that says discover, and I decided to put it on top of the photo and that paper to kind of bring them together. And I like the way that it looks. And I am going ahead and adhering those pieces on the globe. That little banner that's across the globe had a fake staple on it, so I just used my tiny attacher and put a real staple down there. And now I am going and cutting. When I cut these houses out, I just kind of did a rough cut, so now I'm going in and getting into all the detailed areas. So I'm using some micro tip scissors from Close to My Heart, and they get in those little spaces really nicely, and they have a really sharp tip, and I really like those. You can see I'm turning the paper and not the scissors, so that's a good way to get a lot of control when you're doing detailed cutting like that. So I'm just adhering that on the bottom, and I didn't put any of the adhesive at the top so that I could slide my photos in, and you'll see that I will put a little bit of foam adhesive behind those photos, or behind some of those houses later. I was adjusting that photo so that where the photo comes down in between the houses, it looked nice. I didn't want it to end exactly where a house ended, and so I was just playing with the where I could put it. And then I did leave a little gap between each photo so that you can tell them apart, because those two bottom photos are really similarly colored, and if you stick them together, then you kind of lose some of the photo, and so I wanted to make sure that they were differentiated that way. Putting down my title, and I just put a piece of paper there so I could get it straight, because I have a hard time with lining things up straight, especially when I write my journaling. So just using a piece of paper across for that. And now I'll go ahead and get started on my painted part of the title. I don't mind my paints being mixed at all, and so I'm just doing it right here in the palette. I'm mixing a little bit of teal with some green and white for that, and using a size 0 paintbrush, and it's a detail brush. I just got this at Michael's, but I'll link to it below. And those are just super cheap paints too that I got from Michael's as well. I'm going to go ahead and put the globe up on some thin foam adhesive just to give it a little loft and help it to stand out just a little bit. And then I'm trying to decide if I want to put this on the edge of the photo or on the edge of the paper here. And I'll go ahead and add it to the edge of the paper. And in fact, I'm going to cut what's hiding behind the paper off so that I can add a little bit of that in another spot. So here's that right there. And I'll just add that to the left of that photo just to bring it to another area on the layout. And I went ahead and typed up my journaling. I'm going to fit it in that space that I created. I created this big empty space between the title and the houses, and so that's where my journaling is going to live. If I would have left that open, it would have created an awkward space, and so I want to make sure to fill that. So I just typed it on my typewriter. You could type it on your computer if you don't have a typewriter. I'm just cutting it into strips, and I'll go ahead and glue those down there. And I'm going to use, I'm just trimming off the edges, and I like the way that bottom piece fits in between the two peaks of those houses. So I'm going to rest that in there. I always like to find little places where I can snuggle things in or overlap things because it makes things feel cohesive, like they belong together. So I'm going to end up adhering all of those little strips with some Scotch Quick Dry adhesive. And it's just like it says, it's a fast drying adhesive, and I keep it in a fine line applicator or fine line bottle. You can get them at Hobby Lobby or on Amazon. I'll link to that below. But it just dispenses a really thin line of glue, and I really like it. So I am deciding that I need something at the top. It's feeling really open and blank, so I put this banner up there, and I will end up using that. And I'm trying to decide if I want to add in some tassels. I have those tassels. At first I didn't buy the tassels because I didn't think I'd use them. And then I went and bought them, and I used them on one layout, and the rest have been sitting there. And I thought it'd be cute to do like a little banner of tassels, and I think it will be super cute, but it doesn't end up happening on this layout. But I'm going to go that way, that direction for a while. And I didn't realize at first some of the tassels are longer than others, so I'll end up cutting some of them down, even though I don't use them in the end. So I am just finding some little bits to tuck in here. I haven't adhered my journaling yet. I thought I had, but nope. I do end up moving that circular piece down just so that I can have a cohesive cluster. I really like the way that the title and the word discover kind of frame my daughter and niece there, and so it really draws your eye right into them on that photo. So here I am using my Scotch Quick Dry adhesive to adhere those strips of journaling. And like I said, it just gives you a really thin line of adhesive, which is nice when you're putting down little things like this. It is a liquid glue, so it takes a second longer to adhere than like a tape or anything like that. But so I just hold it down for 1 second, and then it dries really fast. And when I do journaling strips, I always bounce them back and forth. So you can see they don't all line up on one side. Sometimes I do align them all on one side, but very rarely. So when I'm trying to fit it into a space like this, I just move it back and forth so that it looks intentionally, like it intentionally has a bouncing line. And there's going to be a little bit of space at the top between the title and the journaling. So I am trying to be cool like Nancy Damiano, and she always does the coolest thing with enamel dots. I'm not quite that good at enamel dots, or I don't know, not good at enamel dots. That's not really a thing, but I'm just trying to make something interesting here. So I'm just going to do a line of enamel dots. I'm going to fiddle around with them to get them really straight, and then I'm going to decide that the yellow is too bright of a pop compared to the others to be on the ends, so I move it in and put the light blue on the ends. So by moving the yellow inside, then my eye glides across it more easily than if I end cap with the yellow, because it's brighter, so it makes my eye want to stop there. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm trying to decide what to put on the left side of that globe. I know it needs something, and I'm thinking about these felt hearts. In the end, I don't believe I use a felt heart, but I'm thinking about it. And I'm going through the die cuts again to see what else there might be. But nothing is working, so I'm going to move on. So this is where I decide I'm probably going to use the tassels, and I just string them on some thin crochet twine. And this is when I kind of realize that some of them are longer than others. Well, actually, maybe this isn't when. Soon. So I'm trying to find something to put at the top. I know it needs something to kind of hold everything in, because right now everything's kind of floating at the top, which I do like that look sometimes. On this particular layout, I felt like it needed something. And so I'm just looking for what might work. I kind of like the idea of something light at the top, so it still adds a little something, but it's not heavy. So that way it still feels light at the top, like the sky kind of. Since I'm creating a scene with those houses, that's just naturally what my mind wants to do, is keep creating that scene. And so I'm using these strips that are from a previous layout. They're just leftovers. And I'm putting 2 of them at the top. I'm just going to adjust it so they look a little bit better there. One's shorter than the other. They're from that maze paper. I think it was last week's video where I did mixed media on the background, and I just cut a few strips off the sides, and that's what those are from. So here's where I'm trimming down those tassels. I decided to pull out my sewing scissors because it wasn't working with the other scissors as well. And I'm thinking about stringing that along the top. I actually kind of like the way it looks, but it just doesn't end up making it on this layout. So I'm going to use this little banner with the gold shapes. I've been pretty happy. I didn't know about the shapes at first. I didn't know how I would use them. I didn't buy them at first, but then I thought, well, I'll try. And they're pretty versatile. I mean, regular shapes, you can make them into a lot of things. So these little triangles make the perfect banner. So I'm doing that. I don't want the banner to dip too low, so I'm going to adjust it so that it's a shallower dip. So I'm getting close to being done. I'm just still trying to figure out what's going to go to the left of that globe. And I'm going to struggle a little bit, but then I decide to grab some paper, and you'll see that here in just a second. While I'm still deciding, I move on to what I know I want to do, which is put some foam behind some of those houses like I told you I was going to before. So I'm just popping up some of the ones that are poking up a little bit taller. And it gives it a little extra dimension. You'll see in the close-up photos, there are lots of little things going on here, so I included a lot of close-up photos, so you'll see that in the end. I decided to cut that little word hello, and that there is a paper that says hello all over it, but I cut that one out of the cut apart sheet that comes from the 6x6 paper pad. And just trying to decide what I can stick there. In a second, I'll get my aha moment and just put some paper. But I'm going to go through a lot of other things first. So I put the tag there, and I kind of like the way that the tag is looking, but it looks a little bit awkward. So I kind of know that something poking out from the side would look good. I'm going to go back to the sticker sheet, and there are a couple little banners on the sticker sheet, and I will use one of those eventually. This little black one. See, I like the way that looks, but it's too small. So this is where I go to my pattern paper and decide to include a little banner to the side. And I like the subtlety of that print. It's just the little black triangle on the cream. And then when I add that other piece on top, I feel like that really completes it. So I'm going to add that to the left. It's a little bit crooked, and there's a little space between that flag and the word Promenade. And so I felt like that was the perfect place for me to add my date. I'm going to go through a bunch of different ink colors before deciding to just use black. I was trying to look for, I have an ink color that's kind of that bluish, that light blue color, but I couldn't find it. It's Glacier ink from Close to My Heart. I couldn't find mine. So I'm trying a few different things. While I'm trying that, just kind of for reference, I'm not going to date with the actual date every single layout in my vacation album, but I am going to put the month and year. So I'm just stamping June 2015. And it's going to be obvious because it's all in the same album that it's from the same vacation, and I don't need to put the date on every single one. So I probably didn't even need to put June 2015, but I did. And just to bring in some of that gold, I'm sprinkling some Heidi Swapp Gold Color Shine, and that is going to complete it. I hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you'll look at your supplies in ways that might not be exactly what you thought they could be at first. If you want to see the other videos in this series, be sure to check out the Collection Disconnection playlist on my YouTube channel. I'll link to all available products below, as well as over on my blog where I'll have still photos and much more information. And you can find my class photo triage vacation photos there that I talked about at the beginning of the video as well. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you soon.